This is perfect. We have multiple Islanders updates as the Islanders have officially hired a new assistant general manager. On this episode of Islanders Digest, we're going to be breaking down how this can shake up the Islanders front office and also talk about their pursuit of the top KHL free agent. And I think this is a player who can make a much bigger impact on the future of the Islanders than people are thinking. Before we get into that, I do want to thank you. We have reached our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for the support as we continue to put Islanders content every single day. We could not do it without you, so thank you to everyone who's already subscribed to the channel. Now let's get right into talking about this hire for the Islanders, and it's a good one. Stefan Rosner has reported that the Islanders have hired Ryan Bowness as the assistant general manager and director of player personnel. And the big part of that title is definitely the player personnel director. This is something that Mathew Barzal has talked about a lot when he first took the role of the Islanders general manager. There needs to be better player development, and a big part of that is the director of player personnel, and he is definitely going to be working closely with Bridgeport. Although, one thing that it is important to note when we're talking about this, and this is definitely going to upset some of you, that does not mean he's going to be the general manager of Bridgeport. In fact, as of right now, while Ryan Bowness is the director of player personnel, he will not be the general manager of Bridgeport. As of right now, that job still belongs to Chris Lamoriello. And let me know in the comments how you feel about that. I know you're going to be disappointed. Personally, I'm disappointed. I will say I don't think the general manager of a minor league team has as much as an impact as some of us are making it out to be. Yes, they do have a role, but in reality, the bigger role there is the general manager is the one stacking up that team with the talents. So even though it is very disappointing that Chris Lamoriello is still going to have that role, keep in mind that Mathew Barzal has made a commitment to improving Bridgeport, and he's the one who's going to be bringing in the big players. Don't get me wrong, the assistant general manager and the person in charge of the AHL team does have some say, and they can bring in some players. One player that Chris Lamoriello actually brought in that was a good impact player was Hudson Fasching, although I'm not giving him a pass for what happens in the AHL for Hudson Fasching. I just want to point out that just because Chris Lamoriello, if he is keeping this role, because things can still change, but if he is keeping that role and someone else is not coming in to replace him, it is not the end of the world, although it's definitely not what you want to see. You definitely want to see someone like Ryan Bowness take that position, especially considering that he has been the assistant general manager of the Belleville Senators, who, although they've only made the playoffs once in the past 3 years, they've had a record where they've had over 30 wins every single season. And you will note the Senators have done really well when it comes to bringing players in from the AHL and having them play meaningful minutes in the NHL. Yes, the Islanders have had some guys here and there, but not to the extent of the Senators. And while he might not be the general manager of the minor league team, it'll definitely be a big addition to have Ryan Bowness, someone who is actually considered to be a potential future general manager. He is only 41 years old, and yes, his father has a long history in the NHL, but Ryan Bowness has done a real good job building up a resume for himself. He spent several years as a pro scout, which is something I'm definitely excited about, because you want to see someone in this role who has a lot of scouting experience, because unlike with the Lightning, where things were definitely more focused on making key trades, the Islanders, at least from the start, are going to have to build from the draft. And having somebody who is close to scouting, who has that experience, is definitely going to help and offer a different voice for Mathew Barzal, which is something I really think is needed in a healthy front office. Different people who can provide different ideas and really help the team be as good as they can possibly be. He's had a lot of experience, in addition, working in front offices, really worked almost for 15, 20 years in the NHL, and this is definitely a good hire for the Islanders. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Is there anyone you want to see as an assistant general manager instead? Keep in mind there can be more hires, especially if Chris Lamoriello is let go. Although I will say, while I was pretty sure he was a goner, it does seem like at this point that he has a chance at keeping that position, because otherwise you feel like something would have happened already. Hopefully this does not hurt the Bridgeport Islanders long term. I think, again, what's even more important than whoever comes in to take control of the Bridgeport Islanders, or if it stays the same, what is the more important hire is going to be the coach. If they can find a good coach that really focuses on development, that is going to be what fixes the Bridgeport Islanders, in addition to actually bringing in more talent. Although, even last year, I argued the talent really was not the only problem with Bridgeport, because even when players like Pierre Engvall, NHLers, played in Bridgeport, they still really struggled to get wins. Just show, I do think the main thing that needs to change is the coaching, and those coaches have been relieved. We haven't heard any updates on who's going to be the coach of Bridgeport. That's pretty standard, especially considering that, right now there still are a lot of jobs in the NHL available. It's just notable that so far Chris Lamoriello has not been relieved of his duties, and I'm going to go out and predict that if it happens, it's not going to happen before the draft, which I know is going to upset some fans. Definitely not what I want to see. Again, you don't want to see anyone get fired, but Chris Lamoriello has not done a good job with that team at all. Still, if we're going to try to look at this with a glass half full mindset, which is what I'm going to try to do, he does not have the biggest impact when it comes to that roster and just the AHL's performance. He deserves some blame, but he's not the only person responsible. The main person responsible is Lou Lamoriello. He's no longer here. Now, on a brighter note, I do want to talk more about the Islanders being in on a top KHL prospect, Maxim Shabanov. And this is something that has really excited me, especially seeing it. We heard a lot about this last season, and the question was whether or not the Islanders were still interested. Now that Lou Lamoriello is no longer here, it got really quiet. And as Hockey News Hub has confirmed, this is an account that heavily focuses on the KHL, so this is a pretty reliable source. The Utah Mammoth, the Vegas Golden Knights, Bruins, and the Islanders are amongst the teams that have shown interest. In addition, some of the big players are also the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. By no means are the Islanders guaranteed to get this player, but I do have a lot of hope that this is going to happen, especially when you consider the Islanders' success at recruiting Russian players in the past, in particular last season with Maxim Tsyplakov. And I think it's going to be really good here to compare Shabanov to Tsyplakov to show why I'm so excited about this player. Tsyplakov last season, I know it was a little bit underwhelming, but he showed he has the signs to be a really good NHL player. I think he can be a real solid middle six winger. I think at points Patrick Waugh did kind of deploy him a little too low in the lineup, trying to try to teach him a lesson. And for the record, I do think he really learned that lesson. And by the end of the season, he was being productive as a fourth liner. In his first year in the NHL, Tsyplakov had 35 points, 10 goals, 25 assists. The one thing that really surprised me about Tsyplakov is he showed the potential to be a goal scorer and really did not show it. I do think part of that is the lines that he played with after he was taken off away from playing with Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri. And I think that was just never a fit for Tsyplakov. He was playing the bottom six, and the Islanders really don't have any playmakers, at least in the bottom six. I know most of their players are playmakers, but in terms of the bottom six, there really isn't much playmaking going on there, which I think really hurt Tsyplakov towards the end of the season. Still, looking at his KHL numbers the year before, there definitely is more room to grow now that he has an NHL foundation. And just last year in the KHL, Tsyplakov scored 31 goals, 16 assists for 47 points. Why is that important? Because if you look at Shabanov's numbers, they are even better in the KHL the 2 years that he played, well, 3 years really, especially in the past 2 seasons. He had 2 really strong years in the KHL, and that just shows how the Islanders really need to prioritize getting this player because he had bigger numbers than Tsyplakov. Now, I know the KHL can be a little fishy, especially with the bigger ice, and Shabanov is a smaller player. We talked about it yesterday. A lot of you showed some concern about this guy being a smaller guy. But keep in mind, some of these guys that you guys are talking about when you're talking about, oh yeah, we need to get tougher, just like the Florida Panthers. Brad Marchand is not a real tough guy. And Shabanov is definitely doing something right if he's able to play at such a high level in the KHL, which really is only one level below the NHL, arguably the second best league in the world for hockey. And he's really shown he has what it takes to be a difference maker, over a point per game last season, 50 points last season. The year before that, and really what really impressed me about Shabanov is he's improved every single year in the KHL. The goal scoring isn't as high as Tsyplakov's goal scoring with 18, 25, and then 23 this season. This is a guy who can score a good amount of goals. And again, if Tsyplakov is able to put up 35 points last season, and then Shabanov is an even more talented player, the Islanders could bring this guy in. They really need to do everything they can. Because one thing I think I forgot to mention in yesterday's video is if you sign Shabanov, it's going to be on the same contract as Tsyplakov, a 1-year entry-level contract. This is a player that you're basically going to be paying nothing for. So I know people are saying, like, oh, we should be prioritizing a guy from the KHL, where there really is no risk when it comes to bringing in Shabanov. So if the Islanders can convince him to come, this needs to be something they do, and it would really help them have a more younger look to this team. Because when it comes to NHL free agency, the youngest players you're going to get are 27, 28 years old. Shabanov is only 24 years old. If the goal is to get this Islanders team more young and more skilled, this is the player that will do it, and the fact that Matthew Darsh is interested in him shows that this team is going in the right direction, even if Chris Lamoriello is still involved. Let me know what you think about this news. Are you concerned about Chris Lamoriello still apparently being the general manager of the Bridgeport Islanders? And what do you think about Shabanov? Have I kind of convinced you that he is worth it, even though he is a bit smaller in terms of NHL size? Love to know your thoughts in the comments below. As you know, I love having hockey conversations with you guys in the comments. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you in the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.